a lot of sellers right now are obviously talking about the tariffs, right, and what that means for their business. Um, you don't have to look far online at all, especially on like these sort of subreddits which are dedicated to Amazon specifically. A lot of people are worried about the implication. Um, I mean, things are moving so much and changing day by day. It's almost hard for me to even speak too much about like giving exact numbers where the tariffs are because yeah, by tomorrow it could be out of date again. So in short, obviously, America increasing the tariffs of imports from China, then China retaliating by increasing the tariffs on those from the US. This is all back and forwards, but um, I think it's easy to sort of get lost in this conversation, and it's important right now to sort of keep sight on what actually really matters, and also what's the most likely outcome of all of this, right? And I think for the most part, it's not something you need to worry about, right? In terms of these tariffs aren't going to be permanent. Right? It's just unsustainable because even if right now it's nearly like 150% the tariff on from imports from China. It's just it's crippling businesses. And even though they talk about bringing like, manufacturing to the US, there's no infrastructure right now to even support that. So it, if this is something that's really going to stick, um, you're talking years about building the infrastructure just to even be able to replace what's imported from China on like a one-to-one scale. So what I think is the most likely outcome is that there's going to be some more backwards and forth over the next weeks, or even the next month or two. But eventually, and it won't be too long, I don't think. But eventually, we're going to get to a point where everything's just going to go almost back to normal, right? As you've already seen with other countries outside of China, like there's bumped up to like 20 to 30% plus, but then just like that, he made it 10% again. So I think that's going to be the most likely outcome here. So with that in mind, how does that impact your strategy right now? So I think the main question, but the main thing is to remind ourselves is if you already have stock already being imported right now, you won't have to pay the tariff price on that. It's only if you sort of make an order right now where that would start to actually have an impact on you. So depending on how much stock you need and what position you're in, um, it really depends. Right, if you're at a point where it's going to be critical, or it will be critical over the next month, then you really sort of have to then sit down and do the maths, as it were, right, and decide whether you can actually even like accommodate the costs right into the price of the product. And if not, then you might need to actually have that conversation about how we manage that. Do we need to increase the prices, or alternatively, rather than increasing the prices, which has its own implications from that, you instead maybe want to think about other measures of like how can you reduce costs, which an easy one is going to be just through your ads, right? I mean, uh, that would be something I would strongly suggest that you consider. So you look at your ad side and go like, okay, well, how is the ACOS doing? How well is our advertising performing? Is this something where if we were able to bring down just for example the ACOS of numerous campaigns, if you bring them all down to say 10%, what does that look like in terms of the overall finances of our products, right? If doing that would make the cost of the tariffs easier to swallow, then I would lean into doing that more than say like significant price increases, because that's just going to ultimately hurt your listing. So, um, yeah, consider that one first of all. But if you aren't desperate to bring in new stock, then I think what the better plan here is to actually sort of play a safe, oh, not safer approach, but just almost don't worry about it too much, right? I mean, I think we've had conversations with sellers and where it's like, okay, well, they want to panic almost, and they want to sort of almost like hamper their own sales just so they won't get to a point of running out of stock. But that's only going to hurt your listing like entirely, like in short term and long term. If you like cut your ads, or if you increase the price or whatever else you want to try and do, it's just that's going to slow your sales momentum, which then your ranking is going to drop. And if your competitors aren't doing the same, then you've basically, and if you're already in a good position, you've just literally just gave them a leg up from nothing. So I think if you're in a position where you've got a good stock amount and you wouldn't even be resupplying anyway over the next month or two, I would just honestly just continue to play it as you are, right? So just keep up the sales momentum. But then a critical thing here is actually once you get to around almost like single digits of stock of a given product, rather than letting it run out of stock and then having to worry about rebuilding that momentum, you can just close the listing. So that's not deleting the listing; it's just closing it. So when you close the listing, you can all that momentum that you've had up until that point, you can just once you restock, hopefully at a reasonable rate in terms of like import tax. Once you restock, you'll be able to just carry on that momentum. Like once you reactivate that listing, like Amazon will remember the momentum and how well you're doing. I'm not saying you're gonna. I'm not saying you're gonna immediately say if you're like first in your bestseller rank, you're not going to go immediately back to number one, but it's going to remember that you was a high performing listing. So actually, you should, while things get running again, in terms of like your campaigns or whatever else, it's going to give you a nice little run anyway. So I think applying that strategy right now is actually going to have the best effect. So yeah, so strategy wise, I'd say if you need to restock soon, then really consider how you're going to go about this and see if you can save costs elsewhere rather than doing something drastic. Because obviously, the best case, most ideal case, is that you don't pay this tax because it's pretty ludicrous. And if you're able to sort of play it safe for the next month or so, then just honestly just try and just keep your momentum going and just consider closing the listing once you get to single digits rather than having a stock out, because once you have a stock out, that's its own situation to deal with and rebuild that listing. So yeah, go for a closed listing, and hopefully that should see you right. But yeah, there's a lot more to this. So if you have any sort of specific questions, just let me know in the comments, and I'll happily try and give you some feedback. So hopefully this has helped you out, give you something to think about, and I shall see you in the next one. So thank you for listening and watching.